Just 16 minutes, think about it. That is not even 10% of an average movie's runtime. Sometimes, even commercial breaks last longer than that. Yet, within those brief 16 minutes, he managed to fit the most sophisticated fear in cinema history. I am talking about Hannibal Lecter, brought to life by Anthony Hopkins. But have you ever noticed what he is actually doing while staring at you from behind the glass of his cell? Look closely at his eyes. He never blinks, not once. He doesn't hesitate for a second while watching you. When you learn the reason why in the middle of this video, you will never watch the film or his performance the same way again. But first, we need to get you inside this character's mind, into that damp, dark dungeon. If you are ready, let the screaming of the lambs begin. The Silence of the Lambs. When it hit theaters in 1991, no one could have predicted that a cannibal, a serial killer, would be found so charismatic and even beloved by the audience. When Anthony Hopkins won the Oscar for Best Actor, his screen time was exactly 24 minutes and 52 seconds. You heard that right. In a massive 2-hour thriller, the lead actor appears for less than 25 minutes. In fact, if you remove the credits and shots from behind, the time we see his face clearly drops to just 16 minutes. This is a record in cinema history. So how is it that even when he is not on screen, we feel his presence on the back of our necks in every second, in every shadow of the film? This is where movie magic and a technique we call the progression hook come into play. Director Jonathan Demme and Hopkins introduce us to his legend, to the horror he created, long before we meet Hannibal physically. Remember Clarice Starling's descent into that dungeon? Dr. Chilton's exaggerated warnings saying, "Do not approach the glass, do not even give him a pencil." The wild screams of the other prisoners, the ordinary madmen in the prison. The corridor gets darker, the walls turn a reddish hue, a claustrophobic pressure builds up. All this atmosphere serves one single purpose: to prepare you for the monster waiting behind the glass at the end of that corridor. In your mind, you expect a roaring creature, chained up, foaming at the mouth. But the real shock is that first moment we meet Hannibal. It is the exact opposite of what we expected. We see a gentleman standing tall, perfectly polite, clean-shaven, hair-combed, and terrifyingly calm. This contrast shifts the fear from physical violence to a mental dimension. By the way, if you love discovering not just the surface of cinema, but the psychological layers and unknown details lying deep within, you are exactly where you need to be. Click the subscribe button to join the Scene Atlas family and solve a new cinematic mystery every week. Join us on this dark journey. Let's continue. Now, let's go back to that key detail I mentioned at the start of the video, the eyes. While studying the character, Anthony Hopkins didn't start with human behavior, but with a very interesting biological fact. Reptiles, snakes, crocodiles, lizards, when these animals lock onto their prey, they never blink until the moment of attack. In nature, blinking is a sign of weakness, a momentary loss of focus, and for a predator, it means a missed opportunity. Hopkins made a promise to the cameraman and the director on set: "When I look at the camera, no matter how long the scene takes, I will never blink." This seemingly simple physical choice sends a very powerful message to the viewer's subconscious. This man is not human. This man has no human reflexes, no conscience, no fear or hesitation. He is a pure predator who sees the person across from him only as food or an object. Watch the scenes again. In the moments he talks to Clarice, the young agent constantly looks away, looks down, is anxious, her pupils tremble. This shows her humanity, her fragility. But Hannibal? He is locked on like a laser. His eyes pierce through the camera. This staring technique creates that authority of the man who knows everything, who reads your mind over you. He isn't just watching you, he is analyzing you, identifying your weak points in seconds. But wait, this visual illusion isn't the only genius in the character's construction. There is also that voice seeping into your ears. Hannibal's voice. Metallic, sometimes polite but emotionless, a hypnotizing rhythm. Anthony Hopkins drew inspiration from two extreme figures while creating this voice. One was HAL 9000, the famous artificial intelligence from Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. The other was the author Truman Capote. He combined HAL 9000's eerie, non-judgmental but deadly calmness with Capote's intellectual, slightly condescending tone. The result was like a machine imitating a human voice, but lacking a soul. His voice never rises, never shouts. He can deliver the biggest threats, even in a whisper. And now, hold on tight. One of the most iconic moments in the film, a moment that has taken a huge place in pop culture, was completely a set prank, an improvisation. You know that famous line? A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
That chilling, animalistic slurping sound at the end of that sentence, it wasn't in the script! Anthony Hopkins did it during filming just to break the tension of the moment and to scare his partner Jodie Foster a little as a joke. However, that sound was so disturbing, it had such a primal tone, that director Jonathan Demme loved that moment. He said, "Don't cut, this is definitely staying in the movie." Jodie Foster's flinch in that scene, that momentary expression of disgust on her face, wasn't acting. It was a completely genuine reaction of fear. Because throughout filming, Foster was genuinely afraid of the character Hopkins had become. So much so that she avoided being in the same room or chatting with him between takes. When you think of Hannibal Lecter, what comes to mind? An orange jumpsuit identified with American prisons? No. A white, plain, spotless t-shirt and pants. But why? Prisoners usually wear bright orange so they can be easily spotted if they escape. This costume choice was also entirely Hopkins' idea. When you hear the reason, it might trigger a trauma from your childhood, but I'll get to that in a moment when we talk about his pulse. First, let's solve this glass cell issue. Normally, high-security criminals like this are kept behind thick iron bars, right? But in the film, Hannibal is behind a thick piece of plexiglass with air holes in it. This isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's a cinematographic trick. If there were iron bars, the camera would constantly have to shoot through the bars. This would prevent us from fully seeing Hannibal's face and his micro-expressions. The director wanted to remove the visual barrier and leave us face to face with the monster. This way, every time Hannibal looks at the camera, he is actually looking directly at us, the audience. Without breaking the fourth wall, he pulls us into that cell, into his private space. The existence of that glass doesn't reduce his danger. On the contrary, it makes us feel like lab rats in a jar. The analysis is getting deeper. In a moment, I will explain why Hannibal's pulse doesn't rise even during moments of brutality and the psychological message beneath that white costume. But first, don't forget to like the video and turn on Scene Atlas notifications for more detailed character analyses like this. The algorithm gods love engagement, and we love you. Let's get to that white costume. Anthony Hopkins refused to wear an orange jumpsuit during costume rehearsals because an orange jumpsuit labels a person as a prisoner and a criminal. But Hannibal didn't see himself as a criminal. Hopkins thought about what people fear most in life, which professions scare them, and he found the answer: dentists and surgeons. White, sterile, a clinical color. The fact that Hannibal is in pristine white clothes in that dungeon made him look more like a doctor conducting experiments in his lab than a prisoner. It was as if he wasn't the one in prison, but those visiting him were. He isn't a patient trapped there. He is an observer analyzing the outside world. This simple color change skyrockets the character's authority in our subconscious. He isn't a butcher. He works with the precision of a surgeon. And one other detail. At the beginning of the movie, Dr. Chilton says that even while Hannibal was eating a nurse's tongue, his pulse never went above 85. Think about it. In the slightest moment of excitement, even on a roller coaster, your pulse goes over 100. Attacking someone sends adrenaline through the roof. But Hannibal? Although this seems medically impossible, it is the biggest data point proving he possesses pure evil and superhuman control. No excitement, no remorse, no anger, no adrenaline. There is only a pure intellectual satisfaction from the work he does. His body is under the absolute control of his mind.
Quid pro quo.
Those famous quid pro quo scenes between Hannibal and Clarice throughout the film, these are not actually a police interrogation, but a twisted therapy session. In exchange for learning about Clarice's childhood traumas, her father's death, and the screaming of the lambs in her dreams, Hannibal gives her cryptic clues to find Buffalo Bill. The dynamic here is not a classic cop-criminal relationship. Does Hannibal see himself in Clarice? No, he is so narcissistic that it's impossible for him to see anyone but himself. himself. But Hannibal finds Clarice's purity, courage, and honesty tasty. We know he hates rude, mannerless people, the types he calls free-range rude. Clarice, on the other hand, is polite, respectful, and smart. That's why, even though Hannibal manipulates her, he never physically harms her. He sets her free in the world because, as he says in the finale, "The world is more interesting with you in it, Clarice." This is the strangest form of respect a serial killer can offer. As we come to the end of the video, we cannot skip that legendary escape scene. The moment we see how savage Hannibal can get when necessary after defeating everyone with his intellect, loading the policeman whose face he cut off into the ambulance, and escaping by wearing that policeman's face, wearing a bloody mask. This scene reminds us for the last time, in the bloodiest way possible, that Hannibal is not just an intellectual, but also a physical threat and a wild animal. Changing faces, being able to put on and take off identities like a garment, is the ultimate metaphor for his ability to camouflage within society. Hannibal Lecter is terrifying not just because he is horrible, but because he is smarter, more cultured, knows better music, and is more talented than us. He is a mirror, wearing the mask we call civilization, but never hiding the wild nature beneath it, showing us our own darkness. With this role, Anthony Hopkins became a legend as the most charismatic face of evil. But although not as smart and calculating as Hannibal, there is another character in cinema history who is just as eerie, tragic, and a mama's boy. The owner of that famous motel who could never escape his mother's shadow in that decrepit house, Norman Bates. If Hannibal's sharp mind and control impressed you, Norman Bates' shattered, chaotic mind will tear you apart. In our next video, we will dive deep into Alfred Hitchcock's masterpiece, Psycho. To not miss that video, click the card on the screen or subscribe now. Remember, at Scene Atlas, there is another world waiting to be discovered behind every scene. I am Scene Atlas. Thanks for watching. See you in the next analysis. For now, listen to the silence.
The world's more interesting with you in it.